I said I'm going back to Amherst to speak. Now I'm being presented by the history department. And this is a historic occasion for more reasons than one. For one thing, the first time I spoke to the history department was 53 years ago. But it was under very different circumstances. At that time, they had come to prove that I was a fraud because I was a part of a group who had come to build the first black studies department in the world. This is the first black studies department in the world, the W.E. Du Bois department. McCabe, you're going to meet, well, you met the first chairman, who was your uncle Mike Thelwell, but now you're going to meet Amakar Shabazz, who's the scholar, the present director. But anyway, they thought that I know behind our back they call it nigger studies and whatnot, but they thought that the whole thing was a fraud. And they wanted to prove that we were a fraud and get rid of us. And they had an attitude, LATAM had an attitude because the university was dismantling the Slavic studies department. And the reason that they were dismantling it is because they didn't have any students. And so they had friends, in the faculty of the history department. They say, they're going to dismantle the department to study the great Slavic culture, and they're going to put something called black studies in here. What is there about black people that were in the department? And so when I went to speak to them, the way that this came about was Professor Stephen Oates, whom I'm going up to read a tribute to now, whom I'm going up to honor. He was the star of the history department. He's the author of 16 books. I'm going up to discuss 4 of them, which I call the Freedom Quartet. And I call them the Freedom Quartet because all of them are about people who fought against racism in this country and died. John Brown, who's my favorite white man of all time, John Brown, who led an armed assault on the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry to try to arm the slaves to overthrow slavery. The name of that book is To Purge This Land with Blood. The second book is With Malice Toward None. That's a biography of Abraham Lincoln, who ended up signing the Emancipation Proclamation that ended slavery. The first book in the quartet is The Fires of Jubilee, which is a biography of Nat Turner, who led a bloody slave revolt in Southampton County, Virginia in 1831. So it's The Fires of Jubilee, To Purge This Land with Blood, which is Nat Turner, John Brown, Abraham Lincoln, With Malice Toward None, and the last book in the quartet is Let the Trumpet Sound. That's his marvelous biography of Martin Luther King. And the name of the tribute is Let the Trumpet Sound. That's the name of the tribute. There's going to be a whole bunch of historians there, who's going to be reading and discussing different aspects of his work. I'm going to be discussing the Freedom Quartet. My piece that I've written will be about. My piece is called On Stephen B. Oates, award-winning historian and intellectual engagé. Reflections on the man and his Freedom Quartet. And so that's what I will be doing. But see, the thing is, this time the history department is presenting me. The last time, they were trying to prove that I was a fraud. Now, Stephen Oates is the reason that I spoke before the history department the first time, because he's the one that set it up. And the reason he set it up is because we met at a 5-college meeting at Amherst College, very snooty, Ivy League Amherst College. And they had a professor there named Henry Steele Commager, who was one of the biggest names in American history. And we had come together to talk about the possibility of the Black Studies Department that we were developing, that these students at these other 4 campuses, Amherst College, Smith College, Mount Holyoke College, and Hampshire, these are all elite upper-class schools, right? So, George Bush's wife graduated from Smith. There's so many famous women, who went to Smith, right? Women's college. Smith and Mount Holyoke, the women's college. Amherst was originally a boys' school, but anyway, so the thing is...
Amherst College is not UMASS Amherst, no. That's a different school.
The University of Massachusetts
Amherst. It's different.
College.
I just want to make
College is a small Ivy League,
Well, technically it's not Ivy League.
It's not?
No, the Ivy Leagues are, I think there's 7 of them. It's Princeton, Yale, Harvard, Brown, University of Pennsylvania, Columbia University, and Cornell. Those are the Ivy Leagues, yeah. There's other schools that are prestigious.
Yes,
like,
one of the elite.
Like Stanford,
Yeah, okay,
but they're not Ivy Leagues.
This is one of the elite New England liberal arts colleges. You know,
yeah, don't
Amherst
they call them
College.
like the something sisters or something like
Well,
that?
that's the girls' schools.
Oh, okay.
That's Smith, Mount Holyoke, Vassar. You know,
Vassar.
The
Vassar,
Seven Sisters. These are all elite women's schools, right?
Yeah.
So but two of them are up in Amherst, Smith and Mount Holyoke. You know, but in any case, so at this meeting, we were not only going to build the first Black Studies department, but we were going to name it after a Black scholar. You know, which was unheard of. Any department being named after a single scholar. You might have a chair, you know, named after somebody, but not a department. We wanted the department because Dr. Du Bois come from Great Barrington, Massachusetts, which is only less than 100 miles from the campus. In fact, I was hoping we could drive up there, you know, because they now have the university has bought Homestead, and it's now
we can drive there on Saturday.
Yeah, well, maybe so. You know what I'm saying? Because they have a Du Bois Center there. You know, I'd like to go. But anyway, and sign my book if they have my book there. But anyway, the thing is that so Henry Steele Commager, he says that he was skeptical about naming an academic department after somebody who was so reckless as to leave their entire academic papers under the executorship of Dr. Herbert Aptheker, because Dr. Herbert Aptheker was a communist. He was the chief theoretician of the American Communist Party, and Du Bois had made him the executor of his papers. And he said, I just wonder, you know, I mean, how you could trust somebody who's so inflexible that they, intellectually inflexible, that they remain a communist after Stalin. So I said, well, you remained a capitalist after Hitler, and Stalin's, you know, crimes such as they were, they've been denounced by the Russians the same way that Hitler's been denounced by the Germans, and Hitler's were far worse. Hitler's Holocaust was far worse than the crimes of Joe Stalin. You know, in many ways, I say if you want to debate that, we can debate it in a different form. I'd love to debate it. And then I said to him, however, let me tell you why Dr. Du Bois left his papers under the executorship of Dr. Herbert Aptheker. I said, you wouldn't understand this because you are part of the reason why we have to form a Black Studies department. You are part of, and this is one of the most prestigious people in America. I say, you're part of the problem. I said, I give you an example. I said, you have a 2-volume book to study out called Great Documents in American History. It's 2 volumes, it's 2 million words, and not a single word by a Black American. Dr. Herbert Aptheker has a 2-volume work called A Documentary History of the Negro People in the United States. It's also 2 million words, and every word is by a Black person. That's why Dr. Du Bois chose
by one or about one?
Huh?
You said by a Black person?
By Black people.
Okay.
All the 2 million words are by Black people. You understand what I'm saying? Documents written by Black people. You know, and Commager, in his 2-volume, 2 million word document, he didn't have one word by Black people. You know, so that's what I said to him, and I said now, and then your book, The Growth of American Civilization, that you did with Samuel L. Morrison, you treat Native Americans as if they're just part of the natural environment, the flora and fauna. You never recognize them as human beings, and the genocide that the white colonists were committing against them. I shut that motherfucker up. So Stephen Oates came up to me with a shit-eating grin on his face. First time I ever saw him, and said, well, I've never seen anybody handle He said, I've never seen anybody handle old Henry like that. You know, and so he said, who are you? And I told him my name. He said, what are you doing here? I said, I teach history. He said, where? I said, at UMASS. And when I said that, he began to kind of roll his eyes and look. He said, well, that's strange because I teach history at UMass. As a matter of fact, you know, I'm a prominent member of the department, and I never heard of you.
You want to finish it? Because I have to get in the...
Yeah.
Or should this be to be continued?
To be continued.
To be continued. So we'll have a part 2.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, Dad. I love talking to you.